Travis Garrison. Got legendary Hall of Famer, my former coach, Merlin's former coach, national champion, Coach Gary Williams with us. Be sure to subscribe on Spotify and iTunes at Go Terrapins with Travis Garrison. Coach, how you doing?
I'm good, just like everybody else, trying to get through this tough time. But you just keep fighting. That's all you can do.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, same here. Obviously making the adjustments to a lot of things are virtual, and I got the distance learning with the kids, so going through that whole process, and like you said, just adjusting to the times that we're in.
Yeah, it's got to be tough having a couple kids at home. It used to be nice just to say go to school. Now it's.
Hey, Coach, I definitely appreciate teachers a lot more now. Obviously, because I always thought at one point that I wanted to maybe homeschool my kids, but I think I changed my mind about that right about now.
Yeah, my daughter's a teacher in Columbus, Ohio, and they go virtual for a couple of days, and they bring the kids into school for a couple of days, and it's really hard virtual teaching. It's amazing how difficult that is. Plus, there's a lot of kids that don't have the same equipment that other kids do. That it doesn't really create a level playing field a lot of times in the teaching.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I definitely obviously a couple of my kids need some help and extra help, and like you said, it doesn't really happen because the virtual learning, and they have all those other kids that they have to deal with and that whole process. So, but have you been keeping up with the current team?
Yeah, I watch the games, like everybody else when they're on. I watch them, and it's an interesting team. They're probably not as big as they'd like to be, but they're certainly talented. Happen to be playing in the best league in the country this year, which is good and bad. I always like that. Like when we were in the ACC, most years the ACC was the best league in the country, and so
right.
If you got some good wins, you accomplish something. There was no easy way out in the ACC. You might play Carolina on Saturday, then have to come back and play NC State on Monday. And NC State wasn't exactly a bad team. They were probably ranked like 25th or something like that in the country. So the thing you learn with that is you don't get too high, or you don't get too low. You do whatever you can, you work as hard as you can, and then you win, great. If you lose, you can't let that loss affect the way you play the next game.
Right.
And I think as a coach, you have to learn that, and players have to learn that too.
Right. Absolutely. I know they just got that big win on Sunday. I think that hopefully will boost their momentum, especially they got to get another game against Nebraska on Saturday. I know they took a couple of losses at Indiana and then, with Michigan, but they was pretty good teams as well. But like I said, they got that big win on Sunday, which hopefully I know as a player that kind of like boosts your momentum and hopefully get things back going and turning things around before tournament time.
Yeah, I agree with you, Travis. A lot of times it's just one game or even a half that can really turn your season around. The light goes on for everybody, just coaches, players, whatever, and you get that confidence back that, hey, we're as good as anybody we have to play. And then, practices are different. You don't practice trying to catch up. You practice to keep getting better, and like all good teams this time of year. Now, this year might be a little different because of the COVID virus, but all good teams get better in January and February. In other words, whoever's around in March, that's because they got better in January and February.
Right. Yeah, no. And that's another thing with the whole COVID situation. At first, they didn't know they was going to have a season, but now they have a season. They don't have fans. Like, I know by me playing overseas, sometimes we go and play games, and there might not be a lot of people in the stands. But when you're a college player and you're used to having 17, 18,000 fans help cheering you on, if you're down, they help cheer you on, get the momentum back going, and turn things around. But now the fans happen to be the bench, and the bench end up playing a huge role and sometimes success of the team.
Yeah, I always thought one of the great things about college basketball was the fan base. If you're in a good program and the thrill. I mean, I think all you guys that played college basketball in front of great fans, say in Xfinity or whatever, you experience that. There's not many people that play basketball in the world that ever get a chance to walk out in front of 18,000 people. That the only thing they care about is whether you win or not, and they're going to be behind you. If you get down 10, if you get down 15, they're going to try to make you better and help you win that game. And that's really a great feeling. I always felt about that, like when we were playing at home, whether it was Coalfield House or Xfinity, and we always had a shot because our fans weren't going to go away. They knew that we were going to make the effort to come back, and so they were there for us. And that's what makes a great home court, and that's what helps your program because recruits see that they want to come and play in that atmosphere. And now this year, there's no atmosphere. It's nobody's fault. There's no atmosphere anywhere. And so, like you said, the benches have become very involved. That's become, I think, just within the last couple of weeks, almost every game you see now, the benches are really into the game. And of course, just being an old coach, I'm sure some coaches go, "Hey, look, if you guys don't get excited, you're not going to get in the game." And so, they got to jump around a little bit in the sideline.
Right, right. Yeah, and I saw that. I know when when I was watching the Indiana and the Maryland game, they mentioned that whoever benches the loudest or cheering on more, like you said, it makes them the home team in a sense. And as a coach, like how would you coach that situation? Like I know, like you said, in the sense of got to get the bench got to be more involved. Everything is you can hear more of the conversation now because there's no fans in the stands, and everything is more audible, so you can hear what's going on.
Yeah, I think that you look at it and it's really interesting because normally when you played at home, if you're playing at Maryland, for example, and you play at home, the crowd's going to be great. They're going to help you if you get down. The whole thing. Well, now when you go on the road, you don't have to worry about Illinois' crowd. You don't have to worry about what the crowd's like in Michigan. And they're tough places to play. A lot of the Big Ten schools are really tough places to play. And so that's great. You just walk in there, and if your bench is really into it and, really pushing the guys that are out on the floor, you can develop almost a home court situation. But then on the other hand, it's the same at your place, where you don't have your fans there. So now here comes Michigan in, and they're going to be into it. They're really a good team. And so your bench, the players, everything we can to win the game. And that's always been a team thing, where you try to do that. Just do whatever it takes to win the game.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I know it got to be, like I said, I know it had to be tough adjustment for the players, not knowing they were going to have a season, then having a season, like you said, with no fans and just trying to adjust to that. For the players to have to adjust to, first of all, didn't know if they was going to have a season or not, and then having to adjust to no fans, and then wrapping your head around that, coming off a year before when they had a chance to go really far, but now they lost some key players in Conway and Sticks, and having to make that adjustment, to everything. I know as a young player, it's hard to sometimes maybe comprehend that, but then they have to adjust fast because the season starts.
Yeah, I think that's the key. I mean, last year, a lot of people thought Maryland would do well in the tournament. Well, we'll never know. You know how the tournament goes. Travis, you were in it just about every year. A lot depends on who you draw. A lot depends on how good the team's playing you're playing against, how well you're playing. Are you on a roll? Are you on a hot streak going into the tournament? So it's a shame they didn't get a chance. The way I look at that is a shame they didn't get a chance to prove themselves because you're tired of hearing some people say, well, they would have done great in the tournament. Other people say, well, maybe they would have been okay. Yeah. And the chance was there to prove it for yourself as a team. Okay, this is us. This is what we did in the tournament. And I always like that, the idea. Now you come back this year, and everybody's fired up. You lost a couple of really good players, obviously. But at the same time, when you play this year, you don't know how many practices the other teams really had. If they were practicing more than you, as much as you, or whatever, And, you look at a team like Villanova, for example, right now, a great basketball team, they haven't played since before Christmas. And so, it's really different this year. The only thing you can do, and this is one thing that I always liked about, coaching and playing, you can only control what you control. So the only thing Maryland has to focus on is getting ready for each game, whatever that takes place, whether you have to take an extra day off from practice because of testing or whatever, you still have one job to do, and that's get ready. And that's every player. Right? The players that really care, they do everything they can to get ready for that next game. That means practicing hard every day for 2 weeks in a row without any games this year. You have to be able to do that.
Now you're absolutely right. Like you said, it just as you coaches, you coaches always told us, to adjust to whatever environment we're in. And that's just all about being a competitor. Like you said, if you a competitor, you're going to survive and make do in any situation because that's just what we do as athletes and as players. Um, I was watching. It's funny. I had Lonnie on last week, and right before that, the day before that, I had him on. I saw when you guys went on that run to the Final Four, and then ended up going and obviously playing in Indiana and winning that championship. And I learned so much more about Maryland, about you as a coach, um, than I did. Going watching that whole scenario, it brought back a lot of memories for me just watching you guys. Going to the first Final Four, and then coming back the very next year, doing it again, and then winning it all. Like, what was that experience like as a coach? And when you came to Maryland and everything that was going on during that time, and having to fight through a lot of things, but then getting that satisfaction of, like you said, like I said, winning the Final Four, and then ended up coming back the next year winning the championship with no McDonald's All Americans, I should say.
Yeah, but you were one. We had a McDonald's All American when you were playing.
And I ain't win a championship though. I ain't win that championship.
Yeah,
though,
but the thing is, like, I thought we were close a couple times. I thought we had teams before the 2001 team that went to the Final Four. Like the Steve Francis team, I thought was really a good basketball team. Steve only played 1 year, but Abina Akizi tore his Achilles tendon a week before the end of the regular season, and we lost in the NCAA tournament to a very tough second round opponent, Ron Artest in St. John's. And we didn't have anybody that could bang with Artest. Artest was one of the most physical players I ever coached against in college. And Abina Akizi was 6'9", 250.
Right.
And there wouldn't have been any of the stuff that was going on with Artest out there if Abina was out there. But, that's the way it went. But, a lot of times you have to learn things. And we could have done a better job of preparing, the whole thing. And, that was really a good team. And then the Joe Smith, Keith Booth, Dwayne Simpkins, X-Ray Hip, Johnny Rhodes team in '95 lost to Connecticut and Ray Allen to go to the Elite Eight. And Ray Allen's probably one of the greatest shooters of all time. Reggie Miller, Ray Allen, whatever, Curry now, whatever you want to talk about. And so here you go, you get a chance to go to the Elite Eight, you get to the Sweet 16, you got to go against Ray Allen. Well, maybe you don't want to see Ray Allen to the Final Four, or something like that. And I got sick that year. I missed 2 weeks because of pneumonia. They're the only 3 games I missed in 42 years of coaching. And I really felt bad about that because, when I got back, it just we didn't quite have the same feel, as a team. And that was really a good team. We were probably a year young. If Joe didn't go early as a number 1 pick in the draft, Joe Smith, we would have had everybody back. All the starters would have been back, and that would have been a very good team. So there's a lot of things have to go right. In other words, not just being a good team. You get to the Elite Eight, everybody's well coached, everybody works hard. There's no fluke most years in getting to the Elite Eight. So we put ourselves in a position to do it, and we finally broke through in 2001, but we had to beat Stanford, who was the number 1 seed out west, on their home court, basically in Los Angeles. So that was a big win for the program and, obviously for our players.
Yeah, it was just like I said, just watching that over again and talking with Lonnie as a player, him from being from this area, Like you said, you guys had the Final Four the year before, and then came back and won the championship. Just getting it from a player's perspective of that feeling of winning a championship on that level. And then, I just wanted to hear your perspective of it as a coach. Coaching and winning the national championship is like one of the biggest, rewards you can receive, and that just whole experience. I just can imagine how amazing it must have been, especially you playing at Maryland and then coming back winning the championship at Maryland as a coach.
Yeah, it was very fulfilling. I always felt Maryland, could do more. Lefty Driesell had some really good teams. Len Bias, the whole thing, going back to McMillan, Elmore, people like that. Mo Howard, great players that played in Maryland's program, and to not, get to the Final Four, that really bothered me as a Maryland graduate and as a Maryland basketball player. But then you get involved with it, and when you're in a league like the ACC back then, Duke of Carolina was going to be ranked every year in the top 5 in the country. So there's usually only one team from each league maybe make the Final Four. And so you had to get through that. You had to get through the Duke Carolina thing. And it took us a while to get good enough where I thought our players felt that they could go play a Carolina at Duke and not be intimidated, not feel like they had to play great just to have a chance to win the game. And we did. That was the key thing we tried to do with the program.
Being a player that played at Maryland, they're coming back, being now the head coach, winning a national championship, they're making it to the Hall of Fame, just having basically all that hard work and dedication to the game rewarded.
Yeah, when I left Maryland, well, first I was a graduate assistant my 5th year at Maryland, and then I became a junior varsity coach in Camden, New Jersey, and coached in high school for a couple of years. And there was no way I ever thought I'd get back to be the head coach at the University of Maryland. So I just kept moving along. I was at Lafayette College for 6 years as the assistant basketball coach and soccer coach. And then I was a year at BC as an assistant coach. And my first head coaching job was the American U job, which I got in 1978. But, really during that time, there was no thought, Lefty was rolling pretty good at Maryland. And there was never any thought that I would ever be back at the University of Maryland coaching basketball. I mean, that's just incredible the way that worked out. And, it was really a positive experience. The toughest thing coming back to Maryland was I had a great job at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have left Ohio State for any other job except the University of Maryland job. And like you said, it was because I played there, I'd gotten my degree there. And, you always want to see your old school do really well. And I just thought, and maybe I was young and, not real smart or whatever, but I always thought we could be as good as anybody at the University of Maryland. I thought we had the resources to be able to do that.
Right. So how big was it for when Walt ended up staying, doing everything that was going on for the program? Like because obviously I wasn't around during the time to understand what was going on, but just from Walt being from this area and then staying, like how big was that for the program, and how big was that for you?
Well, Walt was one of those special players. I mean, he still has an ACC record. He scored over 30 points a game in 8 straight league games. And you just don't do that in the ACC. You're playing against top 10 teams. And, Walt was by far our best scorer. So every defense was set up to try to take him out of the game. And, Walt just had the ability to play 4 different positions. We played him at the point. We played him at the power forward, everything in between. And, he was incredible. And I just wish he would have gotten the opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament, because my second year, the NCAA came out with the sanctions where they had been investigating the previous administration. And, Walt wasn't allowed to play on live TV, and he wasn't allowed to play in the NCAA tournament. Now, Walt could have gone anywhere in the country and played right away. And that's the rule when the school receives sanctions. But Walt's parents were from Temple Hills, and I think it was very important for Walt that they both could see him play as many games as possible. And that had a big thing to do with Walt's decision
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, I know that, like I said, that had to be huge. I know Walt. That's like a big brother to me. Great guy. I heard so many stories about him as a player, and just just like you said, just hearing. I didn't even know that that he scored 30 plus games, 8 straight games in ACC, and I know it was uh, a tough league back then. Like, what was the experience like for you being able to close out a legendary arena like Coalfield, and then being able to open up the new arena that I had the opportunity to open up was Comcast Arena. Like, big, two big moments in Maryland history. Just going through that experience as a coach.
Yeah, 2002 was really obviously the national championship. But we went undefeated during the regular season in Coalfield House, and that was kind of fitting. We went out that way. The last game of the regular season was against Virginia. We had most of the former players back for a ceremony after the game, and it was a great game. Virginia wasn't any good. I think they had 90 some, and so it was just a tremendous game, and it was fitting for the place. There's never been a place like Coalfield House. You can talk about Cameron, you can talk about Kansas and all those places. Cole, was 15,000 people. When you squeezed everybody in there, there's basically no heat. The people provided the heat. It would go from about 50 degrees at the start of the game to 100 degrees in the second half. And we won a lot of games just because it was our place. And that was for me to be able to coach in Coalfield House and having played there, that was certainly a big thrill for me. And then, the idea started at about 99, I guess, when we were winning some games to build a new place. And I always wondered whether Cole could have been, redone. Things had to be done. It would have been very expensive because Cole was really a big building. I think people that didn't go in there except for the games didn't realize how far that went down and, how many classrooms were in there and things like that. And so
Right.
it's probably in the best interest of Maryland to build, back then it was Comcast and became Xfinity. But at the same time, Cole was a gym. That's all it was. It was a basketball gym. And it just happened to seat 15,000 people with no bad seats, which is incredible. There was no poles, no nothing. Everybody had a great
Right.
seat in Coalfield House. And Xfinity is nice. You can do a lot of things in there and all that. But I know one thing, if I had to win one game, my life depended on it, we'd be back in Cole playing that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I was at that Virginia game when y'all played the last game of the playing in Coalfield House, and
Right.
like you said, it was hot. It was definitely hot. A hot arena, um, but it was a great atmosphere. I've been to a couple of games. I've been in the Duke game there, and just like you said, everybody's right there. It's hot, but like the rent is just going. The crowd, the fans are going crazy. Like you said, it's like probably the best, has to be like the best arena to play in, especially if that's your arena, as a
Yeah.
home team.
Yeah, I know. I knew it was good because the other teams hated to come in there to play. And that's always a good sign.
Right, exactly. I played there a couple of times in high school, but man, I never had the
Yeah.
opportunity to play there, at when I was at Maryland and to experience that atmosphere. I mean, Comcast was a great arena too, because like you said, our fans are great.
Yeah.
They're always going to root us back, and
Still
playing in
is.
ACC was huge. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, Cole had the famous DeMatha Lou Alcindor game. That really kind of it was kind of like a step up in the interest that people had in high school basketball. That game got national attention because it was DeMatha, Morgan Wooten, and then here comes Lou Alcindor down with Powell Memorial, and no one ever thought DeMatha had a chance to win that game. And Cole was great that day too.
Yeah, I heard. I definitely. I mean, me playing DeMatha, I definitely heard legendary stories about that game. I mean, they still talk about that game to this day. Um, so like I said, just a great arena. I wish I had the opportunity to play there when I was at Maryland, but I did have that experience to see you guys play there and see how crazy the fans were, and it was definitely a great atmosphere. Um, like, how does it like? Do you ever miss the game in regards to coaching? And I mean, obviously now it's probably tough because of COVID and things are just a lot different. But do you ever wish like you you would want to come back or thought about coming back after you left? Thought about coming back and coaching?
Yeah, well, I'm too old to come back. I mean, I was in Maryland 22 years. And so it would have been difficult to go somewhere else at the end of those 22 years. And, I accomplished, some things in my career that I never thought I would accomplish. And so I didn't feel like I left a lot on the table. But you never know. I mean, your health has a lot to do with that. The way I coached, I was kind of into it. And, some guys can just sit there and that's not me, as you know. And like, I was very tired at the time. I wasn't feeling good. Probably if I really wanted to, after a year or two, I probably still could have gotten a pretty good job somewhere. But at the same time, I'm happy what we accomplished in Maryland. I had great assistants, great players to make those things happen. And not many coaches get the opportunity. I coached in the Big East, the Big Ten, and the ACC. And so, I went against almost every great coach in the country during my coaching career. So, and every year was tough. And I really enjoyed that. There was never, where I didn't feel like I was getting tested all the time. And I think that's what makes you better as a player. And that's what makes you better as a coach. That, you can't just, okay, I had a good year last year, so I'll be good this year. And Travis, you got to bring up the fact that in 2004, we won the ACC championship with you playing a leading role. You made the all-tournament team that year, right?
I did, yes.
Yeah. Well, that year we had to play Wake Forest, NC State, and Duke, the 3, 2, and 1 seeds in the state of North Carolina. And we had to play Wake Forest at 9:00 at night. I think we got back to the hotel like at 12:30.
Yeah.
Had to play the next day at 1 against NC State. We were down 20 at halftime. And I just went in and yelled for about 15 minutes at halftime. We came out and we had the lead. I was worried. We got the lead too quick. We were up like 5 with still 5 minutes left. And, NC State might come back. And then, of course, the game against Duke was ridiculous. We got down. They came back. All those things happened. And, that was J.J. Redick and the crew from Duke. And, we were able to win that game. And John Gilchrist, no one ever played better for 3 straight days in the ACC tournament than John Gilchrist did at that time. He was the MVP.
Like, I know as a player, just going through that whole experience and that run we had to make to try to make the tournament that year, we were young. We came in on the bubble. They saying all we had to do was beat Wake Forest and we have a chance. And then been down by NC State by 20, having to come back and win that. And then beat Duke in the championship in double overtime. It was the first ACC championship for Maryland since '84. Like, what was that experience like watching that, knowing what we went through that season, and then we coming out and winning the championship that year? Like, what was it? What was the feeling as a head coach and seeing all that take place, for your players?
It was very rewarding because a lot of people wrote us off. We weren't going to make the NCAA tournament. We heard all that all year, and we stayed together. There were some ups and downs, but we stayed together. And I think it just showed. And, that's one thing when you're coaching and, you're trying to win games. I mean, that's your primary goal. But at the same time, hopefully things are happening that stay with players the rest of their lives. And, that was one of them for me as a coach. After that, I never thought there was going to be a time where I couldn't win a particular game or come out of a big hole in the game or whatever, because we did it. We had to do it all 3 of those games. I mean, you're talking about Skip Prosser, Herb Vasindak, and Mike Krzyzewski coaching, those teams, and all those guys could really coach. And we just stayed together. And, that was it. Guys like Mike Grinnan, he never even got a chance to play much during the year. He had to hit 2 big free throws. And of course, he says he made J.J. Redick miss that last jump shot that made the game. And that's debatable. I've looked at that tape a couple of times. But, but that was typical of that team. We never separated. We were always there for each other. And because we really got, I remember that year, we were really criticized a lot of times, but that's because people were really spoiled because of 2001, 2002, and 2003. We missed a jump shot against Michigan State to go to the Elite Eight that year. So if you didn't measure up to that, we had set the bar awful high, and you guys had to pay the price for that, because that's why I was so happy we came back and won the ACC championship.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the greatest experiences I have, and they show it every year when the ACC tournament happens. They show that game and that run, and I just seen it like maybe like a couple of months ago. They had it on, and they were showing like some of the greatest games or some of the greatest moments in ACC tournament history, and they showed our game, and just going through that, like I said, as a player, it was one of the greatest moments of my life. I know. I think we talked before in the sense of, you used to give me a lot of advice, and tell me things that I need to work on and things. And me, I'm not gonna lie. During that time, I was stubborn. Thought I knew what was best. Maybe listening to people in my ear saying what I needed to do, and how many times I know I spoke to you a number of times about, I appreciate everything that you did for me and the things that you tried to teach me that I knew that could help me further out my career. How many guys come back and always say that they wish they would have listened to you more, or would have took your advice more,
Well, that's one of the great things of coaching, is that hopefully you're not just, whatever your sport is, you're not just winning games in that sport, but you are making a difference. Now, what happens a lot, and I'm sure I was the same way when I was a player, as you start to get older, you realize that the coach really was trying to help you in a lot of situations where you thought the coach was against you, or, whatever. And that's the way it goes. I mean, but, a lot of guys come back now that, played with you, that played right after you or whatever. And it's a good time. It really is, because, you're like man to man now, it's not like player coach anymore. And, it's a much better social situation where, you can be honest with each other and things are really good. But I think that's really an underrated part of coaching, whether you're a high school coach, college coach. I don't know about the pros, I never did that, but I do know that the satisfaction in college coaching a lot of times came from practice sometimes. In other words, you come into practice, you want to get better at a certain thing, and you got better that day.
Like I said, Coach, I definitely appreciate you. I was lucky and fortunate enough to, play for two great coaches, Coach Wooten and yourself. I wish I would have listened more back then, but a lot of those lessons and things that you taught me still stay with me to this day. Like I said, I definitely appreciate it, Coach. I appreciate you taking time out your schedule to come join us today. I know a lot of people wanted to hear from you and hear some experiences. So thanks for coming on with Go Terrapins with Travis Garrison. Make sure you go out there and subscribe on Spotify and iTunes. Thanks again to my former coach, legendary Hall of Famer, national championship winner, Coach Gary Williams. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Travis. Always great to see you, and keep it going. You're doing great.
All right, thanks a lot, Coach. You have a good one, and continue to enjoy your retirement.